And a good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is 9 o'clock on the dot here, and you know what that means. It is time for Ask Andrew Live. I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzke.
I'm Peter Warner.
And I'm meteorologist Morgan Strackbine. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
We have the whole crew here.
This is
Wednesday.
nice. And we're huddling for warmth.
Yeah, we are.
It is cold.
It's not because we have to stand close to each other.
Exactly, yes. It's a little chilly in the studio this morning, and that means it's chilly outside this morning. We can kind of judge that pretty easily by being in here. So if you're new to Ask Andrew Live, well, what is it? Well, it's your opportunity to hop in either on our Facebook Live chat or text our number that's at the bottom of your screen there. Shout out to Brandy for putting that into the system so I don't have to memorize it. I can always remember the last four digits.
0888.
0888. That's easy to remember.
They
the rest
tried to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
I wish it was just all eights. 888.
Yeah, just punch a whole bunch of eights in and you'll eventually get to us with your question. So this is how it'll work. You go ahead and you can submit it either in the Facebook Live or the text. What I would say is do the text because eventually this is going to become exclusive to the WQAD Plus app on your streaming device and also your television, your computer, your phone. Eventually, we're going to move it away from Facebook. We want this to be on our streaming channel exclusively. So we're here for about another week or two. Then we're going to make that transition. But this is your opportunity to ask your weather-related question. As we always say, don't make it weird. We want to stick to the topic of weather, if possible. And this morning, you guys are in for a treat because, like Morgan said, you've got all three of us here today. And we're happy to answer anything weather related. We've certainly got a lot to talk about. We've got this tropical storm getting ready to jump into the Gulf of Mexico. And you were talking a little bit about it yesterday. You have an article that's on WQAD.com that's just been going gangbusters.
I'm going gangbusters. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's my first one I put up there. It's good luck. Maybe the first one.
I
think that is. I think that means something. So while we're waiting for some questions to come in, what we're going to do is we're just going to talk a little bit about the weather. And actually, if you want to kind of expand on that a little bit, what you wrote about yesterday really quickly.
Yeah, so in the article, I kind of was curious because, again, it's very rare that you see a tornado or hurricane track from the Florida Panhandle all the way up to the Quad Cities in the Midwest. That typically doesn't align with our atmospheric winds that we're used to seeing. Well, actually, the last time we saw any sort of tropical system go from the Florida Panhandle up towards the Midwest was 1906. It was an unnamed tropical storm. That's how long ago it's been. We didn't even have names for tropical storms back then. So in 1906, we saw a similar pattern, and I explained how the Fujiwara effect, which is when two areas of low pressure circulate around each other. That is actually what's going to be causing this system to kind of, I like to call it banana hook, back towards the Midwest.
Kind of does that.
It's like a little...
Which, that's usually you see that kind of most remnants of tropical systems usually immediately go off to the northwest or northeast because that's the projection that they want to go.
Yes.
But yeah, you can get all these other systems that are kind of working against it, per se, and it will completely kind of skew that path completely.
Yeah, Peter's right that it is a unique system.
It is.
Because especially coming in on the Florida Panhandle, you would expect this to go right to the East Coast and head to the Northeast. That's how weather moves from west to east, and this is not going to be the case.
No. Yeah.
Kind of backtracking a little bit. And I saw a couple of comments, which you did a fantastic job with this, Peter, but a couple of people were asking, well, what do you mean we're not in the red zone? What do you mean this is going to impact the Quad Cities? And I want to remind folks, you don't have to be in that red zone or that red cone to see impacts from a tropical system here in the Quad Cities.
Yeah.
I mean, we could even just get something as simple as cloud cover and maybe some lower temperatures from that cloud cover, but it still impacts our weather here in the Quad Cities, at least to some certain degree. And we could see rainfall from it too.
That's right.
But it's hard to forecast a system like this because Fujiwaras are so complicated.
Yeah, and you normally don't see them this far north, that Fujiwara effect. It's usually farther south, and most of the time it's in open water. So the fact that this is happening on land is
extremely rare.
Kind of, it's rare and extraordinary, and it's something that we really haven't seen a whole lot of. So it's actually something that, us as scientists, we're actually going to be using this as an example to learn from how this is going to interact over land and do this whole loop-de-loop and absorption all together. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens.
It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Of course, this is something we're going to be talking about through the next several days. This is going to make headlines all day tomorrow. I already know during our meeting this morning for GMQC, we've got all of our live cameras situated, queued up, ready to go. So we'll have full coverage on that as it continues. And of course, we're going to be thinking about our friends, our family, family and, of course, fellow Americans down there in Florida who are going to be bracing for this likely devastating and historic storm.
I just came off of my weekend. What is it forecasted to make landfall as?
Tomorrow night is a Category 3, but it could go as a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So that really is a testament to how warm the waters are of the Gulf of Mexico. I heard it's just like usually at this time of year they're kind of around their warmest. So it's just a lot of fuel that these storms can use. So definitely could be that possibility. We see that jump from 3 to 4, depending on how fast the system gets through.
Yeah, that's the thing. And speaking of speed, the thing is going to speed up like crazy. If you look at the track here, where it is now compared to where it's going to be going, you've got it turning, of course, into a hurricane as early as this afternoon. I think it's going to happen before noon at this point. But this thing, by tomorrow at 1 o'clock, is already just off the coast of Florida.
Oh, wow.
And then it just rams the Big Bend part of the state. And in fact, they're still expecting a Category 1 hurricane as we go into Georgia. As this thing goes over Atlanta, it's still expected to be a Category 1 hurricane. Wow. That is how fast this thing is going to be moving in. So, it's not just where it's going to make landfall along the coast that's going to see the damage and the devastation. There are going to be a ton of power outages inland into the state of Georgia when you think about how many trees there are when you go that far in. So power is likely going to be out for several days, if not maybe a few weeks for folks that are in the path of this storm. But by the time it gets here, it still appears that things are going to be weakening in that trend. And you see there it goes to an L, which is just an area of low pressure as it merges with another upper level low here. We're going to have some wind and, a little bit of shower activity if you were hoping for some more absorbful rain or meaningful rain. I don't think that's going to happen here, but certainly downstate Illinois, they're going to get quite a bit of it, that's for sure. We can dig some more into this too while we're waiting for some questions to come in. We're going to wait for that there. Oh, actually, we have a question right there. This is from Lyle. How does this hurricane compare to others so far this year? This, by far, I think, is going to be the most impactful landfalling hurricane. Yeah,
I was going to say, so far, the strongest hurricane that's hit at least the continental U.S. So far this year. Peak hurricane season is around September 15th. So we're still kind of within that peak timeline. And hurricane season goes all the way to November. So still got a little bit to go, but definitely when we're comparing it, it's one of the strongest and likely going to be one of the most impactful so far for this year, which Andrew looks like he's got.
Yeah, we can give you a short list, and I think I updated this last year, but you can see some of the different landfalling hurricanes that we've seen in the state of Florida. I love that we can just pull this up on the fly. It's nice that we got this kind of inventory of graphics, but there's your list of recent major hurricanes that have impacted Florida, and you can see it's kind of taking a similar track to where Michael and also Dennis was. In fact, I've heard a lot of meteorologists, both on the national and the local level, comparing this to Hurricane Dennis in terms of its strength, its size, and where it's expected to make landfall. You can see that was a Category 3 storm, exactly what we're expecting with this one coming in. So Florida has definitely had their fair share of landfalls. Interestingly enough, notice the majority of them are on the west coast versus the east coast. You've only got Janine from 2004 that I've got tagged on the east coast of Florida there. The rest have all been on the west coast and all have been Gulf storms. So yeah, this by far the strongest, most impactful one we are going to see, at least as so far of this year. We're not done yet. Like Morgan said, we've got a lot more hurricane season left to go. And it looks like things are just now starting to kind of wake up, start to get energized, and could be a long couple more months here ahead of us.
I hope for the sake of our meteorologist friends on the coast that it's not too busy over the next month and a half.
That's the thing too, is you don't want a whole bunch of these barraging each other at once. We'd like to see some even spacing with these, but I think we also know the U.S., at least the southeast U.S., is in a bit of a drought. So I know they want some rain. We just don't want the wind and the flash flooding and storm surge to come along with it.
It's not this much rainfall either. Because rainfall projections are from 6 to anywhere to 10 inches as of right now for this storm.
Yeah.
They're pretty high.
Especially when you're in drought conditions, that can overwhelm the ground really, really, really fast, and it can cause pretty quick flash flooding. We do have a question from Special Needs Bakery. We're trying to figure out what the weather's going to be like this weekend. We're supposed to be at I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. It's the festival that's in Bishop Hill this
George
weekend.
Brooks.
Yes.
George Brooks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully that's right, guys. It's fun.
They're going to be vending there, and they said we hope it's not going to rain the entire weekend. That's kind of the good news. Is this system looks like it's tracking mostly south of us. That doesn't mean we don't see impacts. Again, you can see the clouds that kind of come in, maybe get some breezier winds out of this, but so far, I don't think we're going to see anything too widespread, at least, right?
That's what it looks like. Yeah. This is so our future tracker in-house will go to about midnight Saturday. But if you kind of take this data and in your mind you push it forward to the west here by another 12 hours, notice the lack of steady rain here in Michigan. All of it's to the south. So like Morgan said, yeah, cloud cover for sure as we get into Saturday. Perhaps a little light rain shower, but I wouldn't count on it right now. Speaking of that, that's our weather on the road tomorrow. As we're going to be previewing that event in Bishop Hills. So tomorrow, GMQC at 11, I'm going to be heading down there, and yeah, you can learn more about it. And you're darn right, I'm going to have a note card that has the pronunciation of that name on it, because
I've been to the festival. It's so much fun. I highly recommend it.
George Brooks Garden? Garna?
Hey, Shelby, do you know how to pronounce it right?
oh.
It's okay.
It's complicated.
It's a complicated name.
Is it German? It sounds German.
It's Swedish.
Oh, it's Swedish. Okay.
Bishop Hill is a Swedish.
No wonder.
Yes.
Okay, so it's next door.
Get the dollar horses out.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's a great question, though. Yeah, you guys will be fine.
Yeah.
You guys will be just fine.
If you can stand maybe a little bit of light rain, which it'll be fine.
Exactly.
Shouldn't be too bad.
And I hope you guys are well. I definitely owe a little trip down there to stop and get some baked goods. So keep up the good work, guys. You're doing fantastic. Anything new coming in?
No.
Okay.
No.
We can dive in a little bit more into this while we have some extra time. And then, Peter, I know you've got some stuff that you want to talk about,
some
too.
cool stuff, yeah.
So we'll get into that as well. So I already showed you the location of where Helene is and where it's going to be going. If you're curious about the water, the storm surge situation, this is the National Hurricane Center's storm surge forecast. And you can see the worst of it is going to be just east of Panama City, going all the way down to Cedar Key, and then north of Tampa. That's where you have that fuchsia or that pink color. That's up to 15 feet worth of storm surge. And when they say 15 feet, they literally mean from the ground, the pavement where you're standing, the lowest point, up to a height of 15. So that's about 2 of me, maybe 2.5 of me in terms of the height. That is a lot of water. And when you're talking about the potential of up to 15 feet, that is something that you do not want to get stuck on. I keep up with the weather chasers, the storm chasers on the X feed. A lot of them are saying that the law enforcement folks down there in areas like Cedar Key and others are on the bid bender saying, no, you're not coming here. If you come here, we're going to arrest you, you're going to be charged, and that's how serious they are about this storm. They do not want folks coming down there for this.
Yeah, and storm surge is the deadliest component when we're talking about hurricanes and what takes the most lives when hurricanes hit. And it's, again, the storm surge is one of the biggest deals, which I think a lot of people don't really think about. Very dangerous to even get close to the coast. I know we've seen videos. We've seen it all of just the everyday average person just out there trying to, I don't know, maybe play in the water, but never a good idea.
No.
Yeah, you never know what's going to be in there.
And these can be extremely damaging to in your homes nearby.
Yeah.
It can cause a lot of infrastructure damage when you see those storm surges up to 15 feet.
We have another question from Carol. Do Florida residents usually evacuate for this type of storm?
I would say most do. You're going to have some seasoned veterans who have been through many storms before. But the thing is, no storm system is ever the same from a previous one. Say, for example, if you were there for Dennis and things were just fine for you, you had a little wind, a little bit of flooding, this is a totally different thing. Every storm is very unique.
And you have to think about, there's a lot of factors that go into play. Like if you say you live in one of those islands, like a couple years ago when Ian was hit Fort Myers, it destroyed the bridge to Sanibel Island, which is the only way on or off of Sanibel Island. So, you really have to, those residents have to be smart of think about where they are. And also gets down to the point with how much do you think you can get through without power or running water potentially, because you have no idea when those things could come back up. It's just kind of like, for me, I'm like, you know what, I'll just go somewhere else. So I can stay entertained at least.
Yes.
Yeah, they're a whole different animal. They're much different than thunderstorms, much different than tornadoes. You're never going to see a hurricane that does the same thing that a previous one does, just because of those unique characteristics. Not to mention, it's not just hurricane force winds you're going to be dealing with. You're going to see a tornado threat develop with this storm system too. It's always on the eastern side of the hurricane. You're going to have this tornado threat develop as well. So even places like Atlanta, into the Carolinas, I guarantee we're going to see tornado warnings into the Carolinas in the next 24 to 36 hours with these spin-ups. So it's got wide-reaching effects. And just if you look at the storm surge inundation there, how long that fuchsia line is, this is going to be a big storm. This is not a small, compact one.
I was going to say, like, when we were talking about the track of this, it kind of looks like it's the actual track is going towards the panhandle and that's probably where it's going to make landfall, but you can kind of see that purple gets dragged all the way down the coast. But that's also a good point to point out that the right side, or what we call the right front quadrant of hurricanes, so if you were to kind of draw a cross through the hurricane, the front right plane is the most dangerous, brings in the strongest winds. It gets really close to the coast, so it's going to be shoving all of that water right along that coastline there. So it doesn't surprise me that that storm surge line is for miles and miles and miles long.
Yes.
Quite substantial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's your wind gust tracker. You can see the radius, the size of this storm. It's quite large. In fact, I think at its biggest point, looking at future satellite models, some folks are estimating as wide as 300 to 400 miles wide is what this storm will end up being. Wow. And you can see the radius of the hurricane, or the major hurricane force winds, is pretty large. On most of these storms, it's pretty compact. It's a thin little ribbon. This is more of a giant paint blob right in the center of this storm.
Yeah, it does. It's a pretty sizable storm, that is for sure.
It's going to be one for something we're going to talk about for a long, long time, and possibly in the history books as well. Peter, I know you've got some really cool stuff compiled, so I want to give you enough time to go through some of that. Because, we want to kind of expand a little bit more about some of the history of this.
Yeah, do you want to start with the hurricane history? Since we're on the topic of hurricanes, it's kind of been our talker of the day. Let's start with that one.
Would you like this one here?
Yeah, we'll go right there.
Right.
I'll go to the chroma, and I'll kind of break this down for a little bit for you guys out here.
Yeah.
Does that sound
Sounds good?
A little movement here.
Yeah.
Movement. This tornado we've seen was last set in 2020. This is the, this is moving slower. Maybe could you drag that back, sir?
Yeah, we can start it over.
Stops, right?
There we go.
So this is any hurricane paths that have moved through the Quad Cities here. That have ever been recorded that have had tracks that move through the Quad Cities. The big one I want to focus on, Andrew, if you can just scroll through a little bit, is the unnamed 1906. That was the last time that a hurricane tracked from that Florida coast continued, rather than going to the northeast like we typically see, actually continued track backing towards the northwest. This is similar to the track that we're seeing with Helene here. We can skip ahead to that next one. This is the most recent tropical storm that moved through the Quad Cities here. This was in 2020, and that tracked from about New Orleans, and it was a tropical depression almost all the way up here to the Quad Cities, but we didn't see that much rainfall from it. That was only about 0.65 to 0.75 inches throughout most of our hometowns. And then there's one more I want to show you guys, the most rainfall we ever got from a hurricane here in the Quad Cities. We got 6.21 inches on September 14th, 1961. And look at this track. That track that you see continuing north, that continued all the way up to Greenland. That's how long this system persisted. But it was in 1961, was the most rainfall we have ever seen. So there's your hurricane kind of quick little history nugget. And here in the Quad Cities, you can just do this day and weather history next. I can join you guys back at the desk for this one.
There we go.
September 25th. So the average we see is 75. The coldest high we've ever seen was 45 degrees in 1945. The hottest, 91 in 2017. And what is our forecast for today, Andrew?
Our forecast is 79.
79. So we're a little bit warmer than normal for that average, but still more seasonal. And then a couple more. The most rainfall we've ever seen on this day was in 1993, we saw 1.56 inches. It was just an average run-of-the-mill thunderstorm, no severe weather from that one.
All right.
But then the most severe weather, I'm going to skip ahead a day actually to the 26th.
There we
There was
go.
an F3 tornado in northeast Iowa. Wasn't exactly in our viewing areas, but it was nearby Fayette, Clayton, and Alamance counties. 3 homes and several barns were destroyed from this hurricane. 7 injured and potentially 1 casualty. We aren't sure because it was in 1881. That's a long time ago.
It is a long time ago.
But September 26, 1881 was
Crazy.
the most significant weather within the next few days here that we've seen in weather history.
Very cool.
Yeah. So tidbits for you. Some
Yeah.
nuggets.
Great job on that. Thank you for looking all that up on us.
No, I do remember tracking Crystal Ball.
Crystal
I do
Ball was
remember
fun.
that in 2020.
Yes.
We have Nancy. I have asked NOAA why there cannot be an explosive dropped into a hurricane before it gets to the U.S. Why not?
That's a good question. So I actually covered this in an Ask Andrew way back in the day. You would need a lot of power to disrupt a hurricane. When you think about how large they are, the fact that if you've ever seen a hurricane hunter fly into the eye of one, how small that airplane is in relation to the eye of the storm. You look at it on satellite, it doesn't look that large, but when you're in that thing, it goes for miles and miles. So it's too large to do that. And the other important thing too, and a lot of people don't think about this, hurricanes are a natural way to cool the planet. There's a reason that we have hurricanes.
Yeah.
If we were to destroy hurricanes, our planet would continue to warm up. And I'm also one of those people that I'm not a fan of messing with Mother Nature. I'm not a fan of altering, weather and things like that, because these things are happening for a reason.
Yeah, and again, when you're thinking about the size and then therefore the size of an explosive that you would have to use, you would probably be talking about a lot of human life impacts from that.
Yep.
You would also be talking about a lot of environmental impacts. You could be disrupting a lot of weather patterns. You could make it worse somehow. So never a good idea. But I get it. Even with the recent the new Twisters movie, they're kind of talking about disrupting tornado. But again, even with that, it would take an unimaginable amount of product that they're using to have to disrupt that. And again, in turn, a lot of NOAA scientists have spoke out about that and said, you have no idea the environmental impacts that we would continue to get beyond that if we were to actually try to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is something that Peter, you're actually in school right now.
I am.
For meteorology. This is something that he's going to actually be learning more about. Is the reason we have weather to begin with is it's all about an energy imbalance. And Mother Nature is using weather, whether it's a thunderstorm, a shower, a heat wave, a cold blast, or things like a hurricane, to try and even out the energy across the entire planet. And this is one of those mechanisms that it uses to do that. So again, if we didn't have hurricanes, our temperature here would be so much warmer. This cools the planet. It also cools the ocean temperatures as well. It lifts up a lot of that cooler water, stabilizes things. So hurricanes do a lot of harm, but they also do a lot of good when it comes to our planet.
Yes, and on a wider scale, for
On a
sure.
wider scale. It kind of reminds me of the explosion within the tornado of the cloud seeding you're seeing in the Middle West. They're trying to create rainfall and kind of change Mother Nature's way, and it led to actually extreme flooding there. In the Middle East and some of their towns when they tried to do the cloud seeding and affecting weather's pattern. So it can have some downfalls.
Yes, it absolutely can. Again, like Andrew said, I'm a fan of just letting Mother Nature do what she wants to, because again, it's a balancing act. The system or the Earth will figure out how to balance itself out. But again, with when we're talking about the Earth warming, the problem now is a lot of these things get more extreme. We get more extreme droughts. We get more extreme heat. We get more extreme rainfall. We get more extreme cold.
Yes.
So a lot more extremes, which is, I guess, the unfortunate part about it.
Exactly. It's more to balance. It's more that Mother Nature has to try and even out. So really, as a human society, the only thing we can do, other than trying to throw a bomb into this thing, is we have to build resilient
we have to
houses.
Mitigate to continue to combat what is going to come at us. Like you said, building codes have to constantly be updated on the coast, and they're going to unfortunately have to continue to rebuild, and they have to rebuild stronger, and that's just the way that it's been for years and years and years, and it's going to continue to be.
And some of it's even changing habits. You know, we have a lot of folks that like to live along the beach, that like to live along the coastline, but there's going to become a point where that's not really going to become viable. I mean, you already have insurance companies that are saying, no, we're not going to insure you in this part of the state of Florida, for example, because it's so vulnerable to storms. So it's more of an adaptation thing that we're having to do with our everyday lives. We're having to adapt to that.
Yes.
Great question, though. Fantastic question.
Oh, we got another one.
Oh, good. All right.
Oh, we got a few more. Well, we have a comment from Nicole saying, I'm in Tampa and the wind is picking up already.
Yeah, outer bands are probably starting to come in.
Starting to move in.
From Cass, storms come from the west. Why do hurricanes move the opposite way?
So it's all about the spin and the rotation of the Earth. And we also have to remember, too, where a lot of these storms originate, they're originating closer to the equator. And that gives you a different kind of a level of spin, a different direction of spin, if you will. I know I've got a fantastic graphic in here that I'm probably not going to be able to find that shows you all of the different atmospheric weather patterns and things. But
yeah, if you're thinking about hurricanes are forming most of the time off the coast of Africa.
Yep.
Yes.
And in that location, the steering winds are pushing the opposite direction. So once it gets into the mid-latitudes, is that it?
There it is.
Is that it? There
Yes.
we go.
So you can see more so, could you get a pointer maybe?
Oh, yeah, we can get a
Like-
pointer on there.
Yeah.
To where they usually originate?
Maybe. Hold on. The problem is my elbow keeps touching this touch screen. I'm like, why is the mouse moving? It's my elbow. I got to keep my elbow away from the television behind me. There we go. Now we can put a thing on this. There we go. Okay.
Yay. Okay, so off the coast of Africa, it can be anywhere from just around the equator, north of the equator. But if you look over, we have those winds pushing off to the west, so from the east to the west. So that's why the steering winds are pushing those hurricanes towards the United States. Once it gets into, the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, you'll usually start to see it turn back the other way. That's usually why we see that path go then to the north and east. But where they originate, yeah, it's way off to our east, but the steering winds will push it back to the west versus us. Yes, in the United States, we generally see our storm activity originate either in Canada or just off the Pacific coast or Rocky Mountains, and then those steering winds will carry it off towards us, towards the east, so west to east. I know, it's a lot.
It's a lot. I actually
The global circulation.
my lab this week was on these trade winds.
Yeah.
And the winds we're seeing above the
They're
different levels of the
super
hemisphere.
important.
Yes.
They are.
And the ITCZ,
Yes,
Intertropical
yes.
Convergence Zone. So that's actually shifting south right now,
Yeah.
which is causing those warmer waters in the Gulf.
Yes, the ITCZ.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And you usually have a Bermuda high situated
Yes.
in here
Yes.
too, then,
ride
counterclockwise
along.
or clockwise winds and
Yeah, there's a lot of
Rides
different
along the
things
base
that
and
move it,
shoots it
but
up.
generally the steering winds where hurricanes originate will carry the opposite from what we're used to. Instead of it west to east, they'll be east to west. And then they'll get into our line of latitude range, and then they'll get carried from our trade winds
yep,
and then go from west to east.
Yes.
move in the right direction.
Okay, I think we got time for one more question real quick.
Yeah, we can sneak one more in.
Okay, Tyler asks, as the climate continues to warm up, are we going to experience more disastrous storms?
That is true, yes. And the biggest reason for that is we have to remember that warmer temperatures hold a lot more, not only energy, but water. So if we keep increasing the temperature, we're going to increase the amount of water that these storms can hold on to. And we're also going to increase the energy that they can absorb into it. It all goes back to that energy balance we were talking about. If you have more energy in terms of heat that you need to balance out with cold, you're going to see more dramatic storms that are coming in here. Now, the one thing, of course, we can't tie directly to, we can't directly tie one hurricane or one specific storm system to climate change or what some would call global warming. We have to look at a trend. Are we getting more of these stronger storm systems coming in, and are they coming in more frequently? That's what we have to look at.
Yes, and we've definitely seen that over the past couple of years.
Yes.
As we've seen, even here, I've came out here in 2019, I've been here in 5 years, and, I'm thinking back to the 2020 derecho. Everyone still talks about it. Everyone talks about it's the worst storm that they've ever been in.
Right.
And we've gotten multiple derechos. We've gotten a couple of pretty nasty storms since then, too. So you got to think about, not saying we're going to see a 2020 derecho every
Right.
single year here.
Right.
That's something that we can't predict, but you can definitely predict that we could maybe see that once in a lifetime storm, maybe a couple times in your lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like Allison's package. Derechos are increasing.
Yes.
We're seeing 2 every other year now,
Yeah.
and we used to see just 1.
That's a good example too. Like those things. Like it's slow. It's kind of maybe hard to comprehend, but it is a slow trend, luckily.
Yeah.
But it's a trend, and it's continuing to go up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as time goes on, we're going to get more data, we're going to get more sensors, we're going to get more everything that can kind of help us further pinpoint exactly what the direct link could possibly be. So there's some exciting things to come as technology continues to advance. Did we leave anybody's question unanswered by chance?
Nope.
Are we all caught up?
I think we're all caught up.
Okay, in the event that we did not get to a question, what we would do is we would hang on to it, bring it back for next week's edition of Ask Andrew Live, so no worries. Or what you could do is just go to the website, WQAD.com, go ahead and submit it, and it may be one that I pull up to answer on the air on Mondays and Wednesdays. This morning we talked about wildfire frequency and how it's actually trending a little bit down in the United States since the early 1980s. So any weather-related question, whether it's fires, tornadoes, floods, freezing, snow, you name it, we're going to answer it here for you. But we'll let you guys get on with your Wednesday morning. I want to thank Morgan for joining me this morning. Peter as well. Excellent job on all of the statistics. He's my stats guy.
I love
I can
stats.
tell him that already. You hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you right back here, same time, same place for Ask Andrew Live exclusively on the WQAD Plus app. Have a great day.